All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you to this virtual masterclass. And my name is Charles Mokil. I'll be your moderator. Our speaker for today, Chris, has already joined us. We will allow participants a minute or two to settle in, and then we'll start it off with the introductions. So if you're joining us now, please go into the chat section and let us know where you're joining us from, what part of Kenya or Africa or the world you're joining us from. Tell us your name and the country you're coming from or where you're coming from or your profession. So we'd like to know who's here, who's attending, who's here with us for this session. So we'll allow you a minute or two. It's now 7:01, so we'll start at 7:02 to allow everybody to settle in. So welcome once again. This is ProsperPath, a virtual masterclass. The topic today is about your earning age, ignite your income, brought to you by ProsperPath. Please make sure you follow us on social media, on all our platforms, on Facebook, on X, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. And the hashtag is ProsperPath. And also the hashtag is Financial Literacy Month. Okay. So do ask your questions via the Q&A section, and then at the bottom. And if you want to chat with us throughout the conversation, use the chat section to be able to share your comments. We'll be glad to hear from you. Amazing. We have Julian from Uganda. Thank you, Julian, for joining us. Go into the comment section, ladies and gentlemen. Go into the comment section. Let us know, share your name and where you're coming and where you're joining us from, or your name and your background, what you do if you're a student, if you're your professional background, or if you're in business, what do you do? We have Gladys Njuguna joining us from Ruaka, a spa therapist. Happy to join you for the first time. Welcome, Gladys. Karibu sana to this conversation. Hi, Nzisa. Hi, Emmanuel, an IT specialist in Nairobi, Kenya. Karibu sana, karibu sana, karibu sana. We are glad to have you here. It's going to be an hour and 15 minutes of engaging conversation with our panelist, speaker for the day. Rita, an engineer from Nairobi, welcome. Will we share the recording for today's session? Yes, we will. It will be shared on your YouTube channel, so you'll be able to catch the session on the YouTube channel. Angela Muthiga, an operations and administrator and data analyst from Nairobi. Karibu. Nzisa, welcome to the discussion. So ladies and gentlemen, it's now 7:03 and we'd like to now start the conversation. I'd like to welcome you. My name is Charles Mokio and I'll be your moderator for this evening. And we're going to be here for an hour and 15 minutes or so. Our speaker for today is Chris Otundo, the CEO of Brighter Monday Kenya. I'll allow him to introduce himself shortly. But before that, I'd just like you to take you through our challenge for the month. Remember, we have a challenge for the month, and that is we want you to dedicate every day 30 minutes to discuss about how you can improve your personal finances. So every day for the next 30 days, during the month of April. The month of April is the Financial Literacy Month, and this is the inaugural Financial Literacy Awareness Campaign in Kenya. And we have a challenge for you to be able to help you improve your personal finances. And the challenge is to dedicate 30 minutes every day, sit by yourself, and if possible, have an accountability partner and just review your finances, how you can improve your finances. It could be around saving, investing, spending, it could be about around debt, credit, whatever it could be. We also have a lot in store for you on our YouTube channel, ProsperPath.Africa. If you go on our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see daily videos, and I'll talk about that later. So remember our 30 days challenge, 30 minutes for 30 days. Each day, commit yourself to sit down with yourself and improve your finances. Our topic for today is your earning age, and that is ignite your income. Thank you for all those who are joining in the chat section. Please let us know where you're joining us from, either your profession and also where you're coming from. Hello, Wangeshi from Kajiado. Okay, it is at this point that I'd now like us to go straight into our conversation for the day. And for that to be able to start, we would now like to give this honor to Bwana Chris Otundo. Karibu sana, and introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself, and we'd like to learn from you. So guys, if you have any questions for Chris, keep on asking them in the Q&A section Any comment about his presentation on the comment section. Asante sana. Chris, over to you.
Thank you so much, Charles, and it's truly an honor that you're all here today. I don't take it for granted that you're spent or taking some time out of your day. This is normally downtime to listen to me and to listen to basically share and admonish each other in this space of financial literacy and seeing how we can better ourselves. And so allow me to introduce someone who will help me introduce myself as well. She's called Amanda. So just let's listen to her, pay attention to her for about a minute, and then I'll come back to you in a second. So just making sure that you can hear. Charles, just give me a thumbs up if you can hear it as it starts.
Hi.
Yes,
my name
okay.
is Amanda. Why should having an earning edge... Hi. My name is Amanda. Why should having an earning edge concern you, and how does this relate to your financial well-being? This evening, Chris will share his experiences to help you reflect. Welcome.
Thank you, Amanda. Amanda has just taken time to introduce me, and I'm just curious to hear from you all if Amanda did a good job. Perhaps a couple of you can say yes, no, in introducing me. Was she clear? And I can allow her to come back in to introduce me again. Do we have a chat somewhere that we can see? She wasn't clear. I'm happy to invite her back into the room just for another second.
Hi. My name is Amanda. Why should having an earning edge concern you, and how does this relate to your financial well-being? This evening, Chris will share his experiences to help you reflect. Welcome.
Okay, it was brief. But did you understand her message? Is what I'm trying to ask. And perhaps the other question to ask is, how many, to prepare this video, I'm assuming that Amanda is someone who I engaged a couple of weeks ago. How many jobs do you think it took for us to prepare that video, for us to communicate clearly to you, if we were doing this perhaps 2 years ago? I'm curious to hear from you, the audience today. How many jobs or tasks do you think needed to be done for that video to be done? Kerubo Ombatie, thank you very much. 3 jobs. Do you want to specify which job those are? Sharon, thank you. I see 4. Anita, I see 3. Be specific about which jobs perhaps needed to go into preparing a voiceover artist. Absolutely. We call them talent in some circles. Another job that perhaps needed to be done. A video comms person. Script writers, fantastic. Someone else? Content writer, PR, absolutely. So these are actual jobs that needed to go into preparing a script like this. I imagine there's probably someone who did lighting, a camera person, absolutely. Now, do you want to tell me perhaps how much we would pay each of these individuals? Because today we're talking about financial literacy and financial well-being. How much might we have paid the 3 or 4 people who were involved in preparing this video? Give me actual numbers. How much for a 1-minute video? How much might a video editor charge you to do that? 40K, Sharon, I see that. Videographer, 20K per hour. Someone else? 15K. Njuguna, you say 15K. 15K for what exactly? Anita Mugure, 100K upwards. Crazy numbers. And this is indeed true. Perhaps not to waste too much time, these are indeed the roles I had earmarked as roles I might need to put this video together. But you have all appreciated that I did not spend that money to put together that video. Actually, what it took me is about a minute to log into a platform, and then another 3 or 4 minutes to type out the message, look at it and make sure it was fine, and then generate the message. So essentially, I did this within 5 minutes and it cost me nothing. It cost me 0 shillings. Now, unfortunately, on the other side of that is all these jobs that you highlighted that I did not end up engaging, I did not end up paying. And the truth is, more and more, increasingly, this is what corporates, this is what individuals are leveraging to be able to get things through, be able to get important work through. It is important, absolutely, that before you go into a session, you get someone, Charles, not related to today's session, but is yesterday's video available? Charles, perhaps you can respond to Purity at some point. And perhaps I should remove the chat so that I stop looking at the chats now. But the point is this, that this video is important, absolutely. Introductions and what Charles did a few minutes ago in trying to introduce me as well is critical, and therefore that role will continue to persist. But the question is, will I need a real human being to do the work? Will I need to pay a videographer? Will I need to pay an editor? Will I need to pay a lighting specialist? Will I need to pay a voice-over artist? Now, perhaps what some of you might say is, Chris, we could tell the difference between a real person and a machine. However, as we go along, this will become better refined. You will quickly not be able to tell the difference. And so today, really, kind of to spur the conversation, this is why we need to really pay attention to our jobs. I'm in the work of jobs. I'm in the job of jobs. My name is Chris Otundo. As Charles rightfully put, I am the CEO of Brighter Monday. We are the largest talent organization or talent matching organization in Kenya. We are Swiss-owned. We operate across the continent in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda. And we're very fortunate to have the largest job boards in all of those countries. We have some of the largest job platforms in Switzerland, Eastern Europe, and one in Western French West Africa. And so what this gives us is perspective. It allows us to see the kind of interest in roles. It gives us perspective into the kind of roles that companies are actually posting out there. And therefore, we are hopefully able then to give you that insight as well. I've also been fortunate as part of my career journey to work for quite a number of interesting organizations. And interesting because they happen to be the largest or best companies to work for in the world. Someone asked me a very good question earlier. Chris, what gives you the right to speak about earning edge? And I found it very humbling because the truth is we are all on a learning journey, but there are certain things that I have seen by virtue of working in these organizations and working across different roles that I think perhaps give me certain right to perhaps speak about these things, or at least give me additional insight. And so I've worked for some of the best companies to work for, and these include Deloitte, General Electric. I have worked for Airbus in France. My recent stint before I joined Brighter Monday was MasterCard Foundation, and I was looking after talent in most of these organizations across the continent. And this gives, like I said earlier, great perspective into some of the challenges that talent sitting in those organizations are facing in continuing to stand out and continue to have an edge. But more importantly, when there are challenges, these organizations, I've also been able to see where the challenges emanate from. I also happen to be an executive coach, and an executive coach is essentially someone who works with leaders to help them mirror some of the challenges that they are facing, to be able to help them deepen their learning and forward action. I also happen to be a podcaster, someone who's passionate about using a microphone to speak about talent and to speak about the future of work. And so these things combined allow me to speak confidently about talent and some of the trends and some of the challenges that we're seeing playing out. On a softer side, I happen to be a father. I also happen to have one wife, and I'm grateful to God for all these blessings. And so perhaps to come back to the conversation of today, the earning edge, and the beauty of sometimes being offered a topic without actually being the one who selected it is that sometimes you don't actually have immediate insight into what you will share. And so what it gives you is a chance to actually reflect. And so I spent some time this week when I spoke to Dolly, who happens to be the founder and a co-founder of ProsperPath. When she shared this topic and asked me to speak about this topic, I was really fascinated by it because I didn't actually immediately have an answer to what it is that gives you an earning edge. And so the question I want to ask you all today is, what does it mean to you to have an earning edge? I'm just curious to hear from you as well. I do have some thoughts, but perhaps I'll go back to the chat now and just get your sense as to what it is, in your view, to have an earning edge. This is when I hope to see some messages coming through. An earning edge. Any chats coming through? I'm not seeing anything. Having a specialized skill set that is in demand, skills that are relevant, able to offer a solution to problems. Earning edge to Lucy means having a skill that is sought after. Very true. So a lot of you are talking about skills, which is indeed true. But I would like to say there's slightly more to it than just skills. What I find is having an edge includes someone who is up to date with technological advancements, someone who is constantly aware of what is happening in the world around them, someone who stands out from their peers, someone who stands out from their cohort of professionals who they've grown up with, someone who has great security in their career. That is someone who has an earning edge because they're not concerned that they might lose their job tomorrow. And so they know that they have an edge over everyone else. Someone who has, quite related, enhanced job satisfaction, because it's one thing to have a job that is secure, but are you actually happy? Are you actually satisfied in that job? Because the company is not chasing you away, but are you actually happy? Joanne says, in her opinion, it is what makes you unique and desirable. Exactly. In addition, I think an earning edge is something that relates to being confident. That when you're confident, and perhaps some of you might agree, is that when you're confident, when somebody asks what you're willing to take as a salary for a job, you are not going to downplay your value because you are confident and that you know that your skill set, you know that what I have with me is stands out, and therefore you walk tall. The other thing about an earning edge is that you are the kind of person who is willing to inspire others. And I'll tell you why inspiring others is interesting. I was having a very interesting conversation this week that sometimes we think about investment and we think about inheriting and bequeathing our children. We think about giving them money as the only viable inheritance, but sometimes offering them a good name, offering them the fact that you are a good person and that you have a good name in the society is actually inheritance that they will sustain over and above sometimes money. Imagine with me, if you will, that if your child or if your cousin, your relative walks into a room and says, I am the relative of Chris Otundo. And if Chris had poured into their lives, this person might say, you know what, anything you need, come, I will give you, just because Chris was a great person. That is an investment that you cannot quantify. And therefore, sometimes being confident and having that edge allows you to be able to be confident enough to pour into other people's lives, because then it then returns back to you 100-fold. Now, was it always like this? Were we always so concerned about having an earning edge in our society? The truth is no. What actually happened is that as history has shown, depending on what was going on in the society, then you had a different context. So for instance, if we go way back 8,000 BC, At the time, we were concerned about subsistence living. And what we were doing was we would grow crops together and we would just share. Further down, we then saw the rise of agriculture. And what we would do is that we would grow our crops. And then if there was surplus, we would then go into some form of barter trade. And therefore, there was very little need for you to have an earning edge because the society was structured differently. Then came the emergence of slavery and forced labor. And in this era, it was really not a choice as to what you got into for work. You really were supporting an empire and you were working for them. And you really had no choice as to what you were going to earn. If anything, you probably didn't earn anything. You had very little access to improving your social mobility. Further down, we talked about the medieval times. Here, then, you see the emergence of artisans and people who would form guilds, people who would rise up in society because they had very great pride in their craftsmanship. And so here you then began to see people really earning and beginning to have an edge because of having craft, or rather being better at their craft. And then further down around 11th century, then we began to see the emergence of merchants. And this is where the coin really came up. And so you began to see there was actual financial risk emerging. People needed to actually have some skill, and you began to see people actually trading in companies. And so, yes, here then the edge becomes, are you a fast mover in setting up a business? Are you the creative one, etc.? Then the Industrial Revolution comes up, where we're talking about factories. And again, factory workers, very harsh conditions, pretty much fixed wages. Urbanization begins to come up. And so once again, very little opportunity to stand out. It was really a very homogeneous society. And soon after then, labor conditions, because labor conditions are not so good, so people began to rise up and really ask for better wage and better and fair treatment at work. Then around the 20th century, we began to see the emergence of the rise of the service industry. And the service industry, really, this was the decline of manufacturing and a rise in the service sector. So healthcare, the rise of education, the rise of retail roles. And people's careers began to shape up because then you have all these different careers coming up in the service industry. And people grew and began to get an edge based on skills and qualifications. And then closer home, around the 21st century, 20th century, we are now seeing the emergence of the information age or the knowledge economy. And this is closer home. This is where a lot of you will relate to. We're talking about new skills emerging. We're talking about new demand coming up. We're talking about knowledge workers. People are beginning to have flexible working arrangements. We're talking about job insecurity coming up. The constant need to upskill. And therefore, we begin to see that now the conversation on really having an earning edge begins to come up. And now, bringing you closer home, literally today, we're talking about the gig economy. We're talking about an era where we actually are unable to predict what the future is going to look like. It is actually very uncertain. And therefore, the conversation around having an earning edge becomes that more important because we're talking about so much flexibility. We're talking about so much choice. We're talking about temporary projects, people who are working on freelance. While all of these might sound far-fetched, increasingly they will become mainstay. And we're talking about the emergence of automation, the emergence of AI. If some of you on the call a few seconds ago, you probably saw me speak about Amanda, who introduced me for free. And I was able to develop a video of her talking about me very briefly, and I spent no money to do that. And that typically before was a role that was carried by someone. So the question today is, why should then we be concerned about earning edge? Because there's so much uncertainty that we're experiencing, and we really need to pay attention because unless you have a job that sustains long term, It's not enough that Dolly and Candy and Charles will speak about managing resources. Unless you have a job that sustains, unless you have livelihood, all of that conversation is a non-starter. And so the question I have for you all is, or rather, a reflection I'd like you to have is, think about the impact that jobs have on our lives. Jobs today, as you would all agree, allow us to have some social status, social identity. This is an unfortunate situation, but it is the situation that we experience. We tend to revere or hold in high esteem skilled professionals. And unfortunately, even compare, especially in this part of the world, compared to manual laborers. With a good job, you're able to have a better standard of living. You're able to take care of your basic necessities, your healthcare. Without a job today, unless you perhaps have a good company somewhere running, you probably have no health insurance. You're not able to access good education for your children. You're not able to live a lifestyle. What we're beginning to see as well, because of jobs, then you're beginning to see a lot of movement into urban centers. You're beginning to see changing activities in our communities because of jobs. We're beginning to see a job offering you increased income, especially if it's a good job. It gives you increased income. It allows you that extra money that you have over and above your basic needs allows you then to have leisure. Go on a holiday to Mombasa, to the Maldives, to America with your family. It allows you to purchase extra stuff. You like a better car, and therefore you have one simple car at home, you're able to buy a better car. You'd like to buy a better phone because today you're rolling with a Mulika Mwezi. It allows you to buy a better phone. This is what a job does for you. And therefore, the role I'm playing today, and hopefully I can play for you in the next couple of minutes, is to show you how you can secure your jobs, is to show you some examples of people I've observed are able to have an edge, and then together we can discuss what it is that makes them have that edge. Allow me to quickly jump into my next slide. My other advice to you on a light note is whenever you're doing a presentation, start with a quote to give you an edge. So Alvin Toffler says, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn and relearn. Now, Alvin is a futurist, and there's another futurist who I really enjoy listening to and reading called Yuval Harari. And he speaks about the emergence of the useless class. The useless class because today, while you might present yourself to an organization for a job, unless you can keep up with the requirements for that job, requirements for the company that is in front of you, then they will not have any need for you. They will find faster, easier, smarter ways of delivering value for their shareholder. And therefore, even if you can read and write, if you're not able to deliver value in the way that they want you to deliver value, then you will be called the useless class and no longer the working class. And that is a kind of a scary statistic and scary insight to have. But unfortunately, good people on the call today, that is the reality that we are all in. It's a very scary time. And therefore, it really is incumbent upon you to spend time understanding what is going to give you an edge in this new world that we're jumping into. Remember, I told you it was very clear in the past seasons what was going on. This season is one of great uncertainty, and we have no clue what it's going to be about. And therefore, it's going to require us to draw deep and to really pay attention to what it is that is going to be required in this new era. Today, what you might have all seen alongside me is the fact that it's not business usual. It's business unusual. In just 2023 and 2024, I'm talking about Kenya alone, large companies, the likes of P&G, the likes of Delarue, coincidentally, the people who actually print our money or were responsible for printing our money, GlaxoSmithKline Beecham, large organization, Unga, we all consume this unga, and surprisingly, even they were going through are going through challenges. These companies, alongside others that I can go down to read for you, the likes of Sandy, a startup that emerged a couple of years ago, a great company in Karen that we all perhaps visited called Builders, a company like Twiga Foods, a company like Jumia Foods. These are companies that we were all happy for. They were all doing well, but for some reason, they're all going through some challenges. Now, the question I ask here is, behind these challenges, because we read the business insight, but behind these challenges, who's actually hurting? And I'd like to perhaps just get one or two insights from you. Who hurts when these companies go down? Employees, absolutely. And the question is, I'd like for a second for us to paint the picture. Is it likely that somebody who was working for Delaru, Procter & Gamble, GSK, General Electric, a company that has also scaled down in the recent past, Philips, is it likely that these individuals could have potentially taken a mortgage? Is it likely that these individuals could have taken their kids to very expensive schools? Is it likely that these individuals could have signed up for a very expensive club, paying over 100,000? Is it likely that they had bought big cars on debt? Exactly. In fact, it is very likely. But the challenge is that because all these companies are going down, these individuals were literally a paycheck away from getting in trouble. And while they worked for these big companies and perhaps felt very safe, and I deliberately picked these companies because the biggest fallacy is that because I work for a big company, Dolly on the call here works for a big company. Kendi, who's a co-founder of this organization, also works for a big company. Because you work for a big company, the big assumption is that I am safe. Because I work for this company that has been around for 100 years, I am safe. The story and the truth is that in this new era, the era that I described as the future of work, no one is safe. And therefore, for you to have an earning edge, the first realization is that none of us is safe. The first realization is that we need to pay attention, we need to smell the coffee and actually reflect on what it is that we have that will make those companies retain us. And even if for whatever reason they don't retain us, what are we going to give up? Are we going to just sit back and say, this is it? My answer is no. Never in my history, because I've been in this industry for about 15 years, the space of talent, have I seen so many 26-year-olds, 25-year-olds being retrenched. They've joined a big organization like General Electric. They've joined a big organization like Procter & Gamble. They've joined a big organization like KPMG, Deloitte. And within their first 2 years, they're asked to leave. This is not typical of what our parents experienced. But this is very typical today of many organizations that our friends and some of us on the call are experiencing. Some of our children have experienced this. And therefore, the conversation on having an earning edge is not about just retaining your job, but it's about retaining income even though you end up losing your job. In another chapter, it's about how do you ensure that you stand out in your present job so that when they're thinking about letting people go, that you're not the first person to think about. In another chapter, it's about how do I have my job and still find a way of creating income with my skill set so that I have and I prepare for augmented income. These are the conversations we're having today. So the point is, good people, that it's business unusual. And the thing is, if we even just go further into other countries, this is replicating across the world. So it's not enough for us to say, Chris, this is hyperbole. These are actual extracts from news. And I took time to actually pick news from legitimate publications. And so what I took time to do is pick out stories from some people I've observed, friends of mine, names withheld, obviously I've put some fake names there, but these are real individuals who I have observed over the years have had an earning edge. And then after this conversation, and when I share with you their stories very quickly, because I have about, I'm trying to finish in the next 10 minutes, then we can have a conversation as to what it is that you have seen has made them have an earning edge. And perhaps then we can close the meeting encouraging each other that we can copy some of these people, and perhaps some of you can also share with us some ideas around what you've seen helping people stand out and have an edge. So what you see here is characters that I have come across in my time as an employee, as a professional, as a coach, as a friend, as a brother. The first one is called James. I call him a pivot master. James was a chemical engineer. Get this, as a chemical engineer, he also was a bouncer in Mombasa. After completing his course, he joined Safaricom as a call center agent. His starting salary was about 60,000. In the time that he was at Safaricom, he changed jobs. And he didn't just change jobs into kind of your mainstream, like basically he didn't change jobs like within the same skill set. He changed jobs from being a call center agent, where it was largely around understanding the product, supporting customers. So he's a customer experience professional. He then joined the network team, where he needed to learn some technical terms. He was looking after the network at Safaricom and really looking at quality. He then transitioned to a department called wholesale. Wholesale sell bulk offerings to large organizations. So Safaricom will sell to Jamii Telcom perhaps some offering that they can then off-sell. So he was a sales manager. So he then had to pick up on commercial. He then, around this time is when I met him. And he came to me and said, Chris, I'd like to learn how to be a talent acquisition manager. At the time, I led recruitment at Safaricom. And he came to me and said, Chris, I'm looking to learn, and please, could you allow me space to join your team? And I said, absolutely. So I trained him, and he quickly surpassed all his peers and got a job within another function. He then left Safaricom and became head of TA of a startup. And I'd have loved to share with you all the salaries that he was getting along the way. Today, he's the head of TA of a tier 1 bank. He earns over 800,000 shillings. He's only 36 years old. He's done this all within a period of 10 years. Remember, his initial salary was 60,000 shillings. We'll talk about what it is that you think has helped James stand out. There's another professional who I came across who I've dubbed hop, hop, hop. And it's just not hop for the sake of hopping. They've done strategic hops. Olivia is her name. She's made career moves. Started as an intern. She just came from abroad about 8 years ago from a university. Her starting salary was 25K. She joined a consulting firm. She was a consultant there for 2 years. She left 3 years later to be a finance manager at a multinational. Or rather, she was a finance manager for 3 years. That was a typo. She was a finance manager for 3 years at a multinational. She later left and became head of finance at a startup, and now she's director of finance of a VC-funded startup. Her salary is about 1 million shillings, and she's done this 8 years later. She's only 32 years old. There's an individual, my Uncle Jack. I want to call him, I dubbed his story, Never Say Die. He studied engineering. His initial career was in railways, obviously an engineer. He grew up the ranks, eventually became the CEO of Kenya Airways. He then retired. He then took up a number of consultancies across Pan-African organizations, the likes of AU across the continent, really advising them on aviation-related matters. He's consulted for KEPSA. He's been a board member on a number of organizations. Today, month on month, he earns 500,000 shillings, month on month, at the age of 81. You will all appreciate that the retirement age in Kenya is 55. This is on a light note. I'm calling Ryan, who in my mind is a networker extraordinaire. So I say he's on a 7G network, while some of us are still on 5G. He started the first club of HR in his college. This is when he was probably 21, 22. He was offered 5 jobs as soon as he graduated. And I met him around the time when he was being offered these jobs. At the time, his first salary was 35K. Years later, He has received a number of scholarships. He's been to Oxford, he's been to Yale. He's worked for the president. He was once nominated best newcomer in the sector that he supports, because he basically pivoted into that sector. He currently does a number of consultancies. He does a number of MC gigs that pays him about 100K for a 2-hour engagement. Just for context, 100K, 2 hours in a day, you have about 8. So assuming, and it's not typical, but assuming he did 2 engagements in one day, that's 200K. Assuming in a week, he did 2 of those, that's 400K. In a month, that's 1.6 million. He's only 35 years old. He also heads up PR at an organization today. I am talking about Millie as well. I call Millie the X Factor. Millie graduated with an actuarial degree from a local university. She started off as an actuarial analyst at one of the consulting firms. Her starting salary was 70K. She moved to Australia and UK soon after with the Big Four. She came back to Kenya less than 4 years later and was head of actuarial at a tier 1 insurance firm. She now leads actuarial function at one of the Big Four in Nigeria. She earns over 1.5 million. She's only 39 years old. These are stories of real people. Obviously, I've made some adjustments to kind of shield their profiles, but these are the stories of real individuals that I have come across that for me have the earning edge. And I'm curious to hear from you before I share with you my insight into why it is that they have the earning edge, what it is that you think has given them the earning edge. This is where I, again, get back to you. What is it that you think has given these individuals the earning edge over the years? They dared to try. They don't have comfort zones. They're not afraid to pivot. They're open to try and venture into new areas. Laban, thank you. Someone else? They were very intentional. Ability to change, learn, and grow. They're constantly looking for growth. Ability to pivot. They invested in themselves. Scaling up. They believed in themselves. Some of them retooled. There's a desire of growth in all of them. They understood their worth. They had a singular success vision, and it didn't matter which industry as long as they were scaling up, upskilling. So all of you might as well have just done my presentation for me, because you pretty much said a lot of the things that I have said. They were not afraid to join startups. Someone says this is inspiring, very ready to learn everything, and very ambitious. Yeah, they had good mentorship and training. So in the next 3 minutes, I will try and share with you what it is that I have observed. And then we can go into question and answer, and we can go into some discussion as to what it is that you've seen. But I'll tell you this. Before I jump into this, what do you think is the #1 course on Coursera today? In fact, the #2 or #3 courses on Coursera today. Please don't search. Just tell me very quickly. What do you think are the courses that people are searching for? Someone says financial management, AI coding, data science, digital marketing. Unfortunately, none of those are true. The #1, 2, 3 courses on Coursera is learning how to learn and the variations of that. The challenge that we all have and that we're going to have as we step into the future is going to be learning how to learn and relearn. And we don't have that skill sometimes embedded in us. What I've observed with all of these people is that they were not scared to consistently learn new skills. Think about James, who came to me, had only experience from engineering, the call center, and picked up a total new skill in the space of talent. Think about my uncle, Uncle Jack, who has consistently remained relevant. And you know why? Because he has consistently remained aware of the latest trends in aviation. He's consistently relevant to people want to hear from him, even though he's 81 years old. These individuals have honed their skills and have become amazing at what they do. They embrace new technologies. They embrace and have developed soft skills. They are able to offer themselves out there for opportunity. So they're consistently learning. #2, they are constantly proactively They're constantly proactive. Sometimes opportunities will not come to you. You need to go for them. They own their story. Some of us on the call are saying, Chris, hook me up with a job. The thing is, sometimes I might not be able to. How about you create those jobs? How about you look and find opportunities to position yourself for these people to find you? They go beyond the traditional. These individuals, a couple of them, have very strong networks, not just externally, but even internally within the companies they work. At this point, I'd like to say, sometimes the big assumption we make is that we only need to network externally. What I have found in my career, I could have added myself there as number 6, is that the jobs I have gotten have secured them as a result of being good at what I did in the company I was working at. And some of those people have transitioned into other companies and they then recommend me. So I internally networked and made sure that I was doing my work well within the organization I worked. I then proceeded on to also network externally and consistently be seen as an authority in my area. And how have I becoming an authority? Because I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly looking for opportunities to mentor others, because then as I mentor, they grow. Those individuals grow and continue to also recommend me. So they have strong networks. These individuals have all worked on their personal brands. These individuals have not everyone's cup of tea. The world in which we are going into, all of these individuals perhaps have an online presence. Surprise, surprise, Uncle Jack, who's 81, is more active on Twitter than me. He has a Facebook profile. This is why he's still relevant at 81. This is why he still has an earning edge over all his peers. So while you might not want to have a very public online presence, there is value in being seen as a professional offering a particular service so you can be found much easier. They're recognized as experts. And it doesn't mean that because you're 25 or 24, you can't begin to position yourself as an expert in a particular area. You perhaps have gone down a path, have learned certain things that the world can learn. There's something called reverse mentorship. There's certain things that you can offer some seasoned executives based on your insight. They communicate their value clearly to the market. And lastly, all these individuals have a positive mindset. And so this is an admonishment to you. Some of you are sitting down and saying, oh, what am I going to do? Who's going to come through? That is you beating yourself down. And that is not what people who have an earning edge have. These people are constantly just pushing. It doesn't matter the circumstance, they're pushing, they're pushing. I have so many more stories of individuals who were made redundant at the age of 25. But because they had honed certain skills, they're able to go and open their own side businesses. And today they're flourishing. And they continue to have an earning edge. They continue to have money to sustain what it is that they would like to, they'd like to have. And so for me, these have been stories that have inspired me. I deliberately did not share my story, and perhaps in a different forum we can share my story, but some of these things that I've mentioned are things that I have also done. I have been very fortunate because of my online presence, because of the things I have done in pouring into people's lives. For instance, one of the things that I did a couple of years ago is start a podcast speaking about the future of work. And there's somebody who listened to me 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and she then was responsible for recruiting the executive, the board of Standard Media Group recently. And because of what she had seen me do 4 years ago, she approached me to be on the board. And I obviously went through the interview process. And today I have been appointed onto the board of Standard Media Group, something I'm truly honored to be. But it's not because of perhaps accolades that I might have. It's because this person heard me speak 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And so naturally, I get to then be in this space where I will continue to network and continue to open up opportunities for myself and for my family and for people around me. So allow me to stop there briefly and just get your reactions as to what you perhaps have heard or continue to see as this is still flashing on the page, what it is that you feel continues to give you give these individuals an earning edge before we jump into Q&A. Did I say everything? Or are people pondering too much?
No,
Yes.
the comments are now coming in. You can see constantly
Right.
moving.
Yeah. So I mean, the issue around constantly moving jobs is one that is controversial, because sometimes you move a job before you're ready for the next opportunity. Sometimes you move a job because you're not stable, you're not patient enough to grow. The thing about moving jobs, and I have moved jobs, is that sometimes you make strategic moves. And what, again, back to our conversation around the earning edge, is that what happens practically is that every time you move a job, you're paid a premium. If you stay within one job, you're probably getting a 5% increase every year. When you move a job, you get a 20%, in some cases 30% premium on your salary. So imagine if you've moved jobs within 4 years 2 times, your salary has grown significantly more than your peers. The other thing is that by moving jobs, you then get to meet so many different people, so many different industries, and you continue to enrich your network. But the caveat is, don't just move jobs for the sake of moving them. Move when you're ready. Move when you feel that the environment around you is not allowing you to grow. Of course, I like what Faith is saying, don't get too comfortable. If you're in a role where you feel you're not being stretched, absolutely move, because then there's value in being in a space that will grow. In fact, I like to say that's good sailors are only developed from rough seas. You will only grow where there's tough, where you're being stretched. You'll only grow where you're being challenged. If you're comfortable, there's no growth going on there. You will only grow when there's some level of pain. In fact, I was listening to someone last week, and I shared it with Dolly, that they were saying, and this is my this is my last statement before, Charles, I invite questions, is that this guy was talking to a group of Stanford graduates, and he was saying, look, what makes me very successful is that I have very little expectations. I have very little expectations because I didn't come from much. You guys here at Stanford are likely very well-to-do because you're able to pay the school fees here. You have graduated among very intelligent people, and therefore you then have every right to have very high expectations. The problem, he said, with high expectations is that people with high expectations have very little resilience. And resilience is what then forms character. And character is what brings about growth and success. So therefore, what he's saying is that, unfortunately, these Stanford graduates will not have enough resilience to take on life. And because they don't have resilience, their character will not be built. And therefore, they are unlikely to be very successful, especially in a world that's going to be uncertain. And so what he wished for them, he said, I wish upon you a little dose of suffering, a little dose of pain, so that you can grow your character. And so my parting shot, or my last point, is that in developing your earning edge, subject yourself to some pain, subject yourself to some uncomfortable space where you have to learn a new skill, where you have to go to uncharted territory, where you have to wake up at 5 a.m. to learn a new skill. This will give you the earning edge. This will allow you to have a skill that, even if for whatever reason, God forbid, your company decides to let you go, you are so strong at what you do that you can continue to either offer that service as a gig worker, as a consultant, and you will continue to enjoy money like my Uncle Jack all the way into his 81. And I remind you why it is important that you earn, because you want to be able to access the comforts of life. You want to be able to pay for healthcare. You want to be able to pay for education. You want to be able to access basic necessities. Charles, with those many remarks, I want to pause now and take some questions.
Thank you very much, Chris. If I'm not wrong, you were quoting Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA, who was talking.
Yes.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, please go Google Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA. He built that company. He's been at that role for CEO for 30 plus years, and I really concur with you, Chris. Before we go into the questions from the audience, I'd like to participants, you may send the questions in the Q&A section, and then we'll be able to answer you. The first question that Chris people are asking is, you started off by saying you've been able to work at very good organizations, some of the best in the world. And someone has posed a question, particularly. They're curious to know, why would you rank those organizations at the best? Or in your personal capacity, why was it the best? Why were they the best organizations to work with? What are the things?
Wonderful question that gives me a chance to think. So General Electric, a company that has been around for 100+ years. We used to say when I was there, they basically they power the whole world. They move you. They own aircrafts. They power the whole world. Literally, this is a company that has written books on management, and continues to channel the best leaders who serve other companies. So General Electric, by all standards, is one of the best companies to work for. Airbus, a company in France, has been touted as the best company to work for in France because of the values and some of the benefits that they offer. There are only two largest aviation aircraft manufacturers in the world, Boeing, Airbus. Certainly, to be number 2 is no mean feat. So Airbus is a company I've worked for. I worked for Deloitte. I worked for KPMG. These are the largest. They're considered the big 4. In that name alone, it tells you that they're the top 4 in the world in terms of consulting, and they recruit the best of the best in terms of intellect and experience. I worked for Safaricom. Safaricom today is number 1 telco in the region. Is the revenues that Safaricom makes combined all the companies on the stock exchange combined in Kenya do not make the revenue that Safaricom makes. MasterCard Foundation. In the world, we have MasterCard and we have Visa. MasterCard Foundation is the foundation that is run on behalf of MasterCard. Today, Brighter Monday Kenya is the number 1 job platform in Kenya. So I've been very blessed, and I dare say, to work for the best companies in the world. And you can Google all these companies. And more importantly, I mean, these companies are great, but they were also great places to learn. These places they were great companies that allowed me to hone my skill and allowed me to become the professional that I am today.
Thank you, Chris. Those companies are number 1, and clearly they chose to work with you. So you're also number 1. So participants, we have someone who's worked for the best companies in the world, and he's justified why those are some of the best companies in the world, or in Kenya, or in the region. And so we would like to encourage you to ask questions via the Q&A. The other question, Chris, would be, someone asks, how do you go about acquiring mentorship? We talked about mentors and career mentors. How do we go about that? Is it a one-size-fits-all, or what are some of the things that you can talk about handling, getting a mentor or having a mentor?
Yeah, it's a good question. So mentors, the challenge that we normally have is that someone will reach out to me and say, Chris, I'd like you to mentor me. And they'd like to set aside time for us to sit down and talk. A lot of times, some of the people that you're looking up to, unfortunately, have very little time. And sometimes mentorship in its tradition, in the form that people understand it, is not how it's best delivered. Mentorship sometimes comes in the form of observation, working hand in hand with a professional who you admire. Sometimes watching someone, observing. So for instance, if you want to be mentored by me, look at what I do on LinkedIn. Observe my career. Come to forums where I am speaking. That is mentorship. Works side by side with me if you happen to be in the same organization as I work in, and that will be mentorship. It just means that I don't have to take time aside to mentor you, because you can imagine most executives have very little time in the day, and therefore while because they want to pour themselves out, if they're a good leader to many people, it'll be very hard for them to really spend time to be with you specifically, and therefore find creative ways to be mentored. And I've given you some examples of how you can do that.
Okay.
Lucy, you said exactly what I would have said if I was just as smart as you. A mentor once said, some things are taught and others caught. That is exactly what I would have said if I had better English.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Lucy, for that. Someone asks, how do you prepare, now Faith in particular, how do you prepare for the next role, especially if you want to make a career drift change? Because your presentation has, the people you've used as an example have really changed roles. So how do you prepare for that? Any tips around that?
Yeah. So typically, and this was typical of my role at Safaricom, where being a large organization, there were many opportunities. So in preparing, sometimes you might not get the opportunity immediately to transition, What you can leverage is one, mentorship where you observe. The other one is if you're in an environment where you can do something called job rotation, where you work side by side with this individual, take an hour of your week to actually work side by side with this professional, ask the questions. There's a terminology we like to leverage called prototyping. Go and sit down with this individual, observe their career, and by the time you're making that decision to transition, you will have answered the question, do I actually enjoy what they're doing? Or is it just that I am admiring them from afar and looking at the grass on the other side and thinking it's amazing? But sometimes prototyping and just testing the waters and sitting down and watching and asking to be given some assignments, that is preparation. Number two is actually building the skills required for that job. So taking time to actually learn what is required. I'll tell you, for instance, a couple of years, while it was not something that was required of me, I subscribed to a course on HR analytics. And I was then able to understand data science, Python, programming, etc. When I was being interviewed for my CEO role, those are some of the things that stood out because I was going to look after a technology company, and my understanding of data and my understanding of analytics is what perhaps gave me an earning edge over some of the CEOs I was being interviewed alongside. So again, I was preparing myself for that. I went to do a master's in France for about 2 years. And what was I learning? I was learning about the stock exchange. I was learning about business, international business. I was learning about the history of business. This was me preparing myself for a commercial role. Remember, my career was largely in talent, and I was a functional leader. But here comes a CEO role that requires me to run a business and run a P&L. Because I studied in my master's course about business and about organizations, I was then able to leverage that skill set. So I was preparing myself for the opportunity ahead of time. I only got the job, or the CEO job, almost 7 years later.
Okay, thanks for that. So Lucy asks, as we see the future of work evolve, is it true to say that human interest or human-related careers are more sought after, even as AI comes into play?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So increasingly, for sure, because roles that are repetitive, roles that are mundane. So just to take a step back, jobs are not disappearing. The job of a finance manager will still be there. It is the tasks within the finance manager role that will change. So the finance manager will now be required to do something slightly different. His title might even change, but the role will still be there. So the thing is, today, if you're doing accounting, if you're doing basic, bookkeeping, and it's very mundane, that will be disrupted because the technology will quickly figure out that mundane task and automate it. But the space around creativity, the space around collaboration, the space around emotional intelligence, the space around customer service, and the human touch, that cannot be replaced by machine effectively. And therefore, these are some of the skills that we will be asking asking individuals to focus on. Learn how to learn. That's not a technical skill. That's a soft skill. Learn how to meditate. Learn how to manage stress, because the world we're going into is going to be very stressful, because you're going to constantly need to learn and learn. No one is prepared for that kind of environment. The older we grow, the slower we become, the less able we are perhaps to grasp ideas, and therefore what are we going to tap into to be able to do this and sustain, like my Uncle Jack until 81. The curiosity about what is happening around us. Not all of us are naturally curious, but these are skills we're going to have to dig deep and extract, and therefore these are the skills that are going to be really required of us, aside from the technical skills. Have an understanding of technology, but more and more, the technical things, the technical component of the role will be automated, and some of the softer skills are going to be more important.
Okay, thanks for that.
Sorry, Charles. Good communication, the ability to communicate and inspire audiences. That's going to be a skill set that's going to be sought after. A psychologist, someone who can work with people through challenging times, that's going to be a skill sought after. So some of these are going to be very important skills in the future.
Actually, you've answered my next question, which was, what are some of the skills of the future? So, someone was asking, so communication, psychology. But, we have job seekers here also on the call. And someone says, what are some of the skills, the 2 to 3 skills that they should have as a job seeker? These are obviously non-technical skills as they look for a job and navigate the job seeking. What would you recommend?
Yeah, so I'll go back to some of the things that we talked about. If I was evaluating a graduate today, I'm not so concerned about the technical capability at that moment. What I'm curious to see and what I'm really keen to see is, are these people willing to learn? Basic skill set. Are you analytical? Analytical to mean, are you able to take information that I give you and make and infer some insights from it? While some of this will be done for us by technology, the curiosity to say this particular solution and this solution, if they come together, can give me even deeper insight, that is a skill set I'll be looking for. Someone who's willing to learn, humble. It sounds like such basic stuff, because the future of work, and I'll tell you about a corporate like Safaricom where I worked, technology is now embracing something called agile. And the agile way of working is where we come in pods and we have specific skill sets within that pod. And the number one skill sets that you all need to have is humility. In fact, the leader of that group needs to be humble, to lead from the back. So if you're humble, humility basically allows you then to accept that you don't know and be willing to learn again. So these are some of the things that obviously I think you need to pay attention to. So an understanding of analytics tools, an understanding of being curious, because like I said, it's so uncertain that I cannot even tell you, go and study software development in this particular course, or go and study financial analytics. Be willing, and this is perhaps another point, if your career in the past used to be a house, a stone house, with 20 courses of stone and a nice roof, your career in the future is going to be a tent which you pitch up when it's sunny, or rather when it's raining, and then when the rain disappears, you follow that rain to the next 100 kilometers and you pitch it up there. And if it becomes too windy, you remove it and you pitch it up somewhere else. That is going to be your career. Always think about your career as a tent, not a stone building as it used to be.
Okay, thanks for that. Now, someone's asking, having an age, they're saying, it seems that the private sector, in the private sector, there's more people who have that age as opposed to the public sector. Is it something that you've noticed, or is it, how would you contribute to that? Private and public sector having an age?
Yeah. I mean, it's no failing of the individuals in the public sector. It's just that public sector tends to be bureaucratic. I dare say that confidently, even if there's a couple of public sector people in the audience. Public sector, just because they're taking care of so many people, they need to create systems to be able to manage all those people and make sure that nobody gets away with our public resources. And therefore, as a result of those structures, innovation does not come very quickly. The opportunity to grow perhaps does not also come very quickly. And therefore, it's not necessarily the best place for you to, just by virtue of the ecosystem, to naturally find a space to grow. So you need to tap into some other environments, tap into other friends, tap into other groups of individuals, find mentorship from other circles to be able to gain that inspiration. People like to say you are a summary, or you're an average of the people you hang out with. So if you hang out only with people who you work with daily, and unfortunately people in the public sector who tend to become very comfortable. A public sector job is also very stable. And what does stability do for you? It also makes you unconsciously lazy, and it makes you comfortable. And what we said earlier is growth will not come from a place of comfort. So all these factors is what will then make you lose that edge. And therefore you need to find a space where you can draw additional inspiration, additional challenge to get that edge. And it doesn't mean that you cannot grow within the public sector. It just means it might be slower. There's certain things that I talked about around your strong networks, around your personal brand, around being positive. Some of those factors can play into you being picked up within the private sector, the public sector, and elevated, and then therefore getting your earning edge. But those might be a little bit less compared to, say, for instance, the private sector, because it moves faster, etc., etc.
Okay, valid. Now, so still in private sector. Now let's come down a bit lower to startups. So someone says, they've noticed that startups in Kenya that are locally led, that means Kenyans, started by Kenyans, for Kenyans, have the founders have some sort of an ego attached to leading, and so they don't want to be led. How do you approach this? You know, I'm a techie, or I'm a genius. I've started my new startup, and I don't feel as if I need to be led. So how would you advise? There's co-founders or young guys who are starting up companies, even older guys who are starting up. How do you advise being led? Yet you know you're the genius behind it. You're the innovator. You're the thinker. You're the director, so to say.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't speak for innovators, but I mean, there's certain principles that apply. I think one thing's for sure: if you find yourself in an environment where, I mean, I answer this question two-pronged. To the founders, they need to tap into humility. They need to tap into allowing themselves to, because I was reading somewhere about I'll find the quote. Perhaps it's my phone. It's my phone which fell down. I'll read it. But essentially, as a founder, you definitely are the brains behind the original idea. But sometimes ideas run out. And a great idea only becomes greater with addition and insight from the market, from the brilliant minds that you recruit. And if you block yourself from receiving feedback and insight from the market, then your business will shut down. So that's just a universal truth, that an idea is only as good as continuous improvement. Because we're going into the future of work, where things will consistently change, that original great idea will not remain great forever. So that's more from the founder standpoint. From the employee standpoint, you have the choice to leave. If you find yourself in an environment that does not support your growth, you also need to be humble and appreciate that the reason why perhaps you're there is because of this great idea that this person has launched, and therefore there's an opportunity for you to learn. So learn where you can, tap into the genius of the founder. Sometimes, especially with the younger generation, you feel as though you want to quickly fast track your growth without going through the paces of actually learning. There's something that comes from going through the furnace. There's a growth that comes from pain. And if you allow yourself to go through that pain of learning, of going through the grind of building this startup, the growth that comes from it is unfathomable. And therefore, sometimes there's a patience element to it, but sometimes there's also a, you know what, it's not working, hop, and then hop if it's not working, and then hop again if it's not working. Do not be scared to leave a toxic environment, because your growth will be stifled.
All right, thanks for that. The last question before we now go into the wrap up, because we're closing at 8:15. It would be someone's in a situation where their current salary is quite low. They've gotten a new job offer, and that new job offer, the salary they're offering them is almost 3 times, but they're afraid of presenting their current pay slip, in fear that they might be saying, why you ask, you used to be paid this amount of money, and now we're giving you this. So how does someone handle that situation? How would you advise them to handle that?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation that organizations take advantage of, where they will then sometimes match your salary to what you're presently earning. More and more with a market where you are the one in the driver's seat, where you're the one who has the skill and they need it, you can push back and say, look, I'm bringing this value. What you offer me, what you are willing to pay for this role. I'm not at liberty to share with you what I'm currently on, but obviously do that with tact. You're obviously looking for this job and you want to get the job. So evaluate if it's a situation where you can actually push back. In some cases, you can actually articulate clearly that, look, I have been on a journey of trying to correct my pay, and therefore I would not like for you to take advantage of my situation to give me less, and therefore I'd be hoping that you can pay me at market rate. All right. So many organizations, many good organizations have a pay scale, and that pay scale is what informs how they pay you. So it's not a kind of one size fits all. Some organizations you can push back, especially, remember my original point, when you're confident about your skill set, then you walk tall, you walk with confidence, and therefore you can push back on organizations and say, hey, I have an earning edge, pay me right. Yeah. But if you're not confident, then you'll be bullied around. So that's some of the insight that you need. I think you definitely need to assess case by case. Some organizations really do have a standard pay structure, so it doesn't matter. Even if you give it to them, they'll probably just start you off on the lower end of that bracket, but they will still pay you probably double, 3 times what you're currently on. So it really varies from organization to organization.
All right. Thanks, Chris, for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to close up the Q&A session now so that we can be able to end on time. Chris, parting short in terms of what does the future look like for people in the marketplace? What are you hoping? What change would you like to see with people who are coming to the marketplace that they should do? You've obviously talked about humility, talked a lot about being teachable, talked about how to learn and relearn. You've talked a lot about how to have despite losing a job, how do you retain your income, have skill set, So what is it that you want to see for people who are coming to the marketplace that they do differently as your parting shot?
Yeah.
And we'll be able to.
I think my parting shot is seek help. And perhaps I should not do it. It'll be remiss of me not to share this slide. So this is the company I look after. So they need me to sell the organization as well. So today we run a campaign in January called Get Ahead of the Curve. And what it does for you is that leveraging AI, leveraging individuals who are working with AI and actual individuals, we will help you update your profile. Your CV, enhance your CV, make it more professional. And it's custom for the different careers. What we also advise you to do as you're looking for your next job, go into Brighter Monday, update your profile. It really helps that if you update your profile and set up job alerts, the minute a job that is matched to you shows up, we will immediately send you an email with a specific job. In the past, people used to sign up to our newsletters. They were not very accurate, and therefore you'd get a lot of spam and jobs are not relevant. We fixed this by embracing the job alerts. So if you can sign up to the job alerts, they will give you exactly the job that is aligned to what you'd set up as a job that matches your current career. And it will also give you can also set the frequency. You can say, I'd like to see this once a week, once a month, etc. So I'd encourage you to do this. But lastly, back to what I said, I think you definitely need to pay attention to learning. Learn. If there's one thing that you take away from today, is take time to learn. Don't be comfortable, and be willing to be humble, or rather be humble. Be willing to be taught, be willing to take lessons, seek help from mentors, watch them, observe them, and growth will come from some level of pain, is my last statement.
Growth will come from some level of pain. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause in the comment section to our speaker for today, Mr. Chris Otundo, the CEO of Brighter Monday in Kenya. Thank you so much, Chris, for your knowledge, 15 years of experience. You're a podcaster. Everyone else, head over to his podcast, The Future of Work. I believe it's available on all platforms, Chris.
Yes, it's called African Retooled. We've not African Retooled. And yes, African Retooled is certainly a place you can be inspired by some of the insights we got from different professionals in the future of work. You might find that you find your career there mentioned. We talked to some leaders, and we actually got some insight into how to take on challenging times. So please listen to African Retooled. Yes, Sydney, African Retooled. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Chris. And congratulations. Dolly says congratulations on your recent appointment to the Standard Media Group. It is commendable.
Thank you.
So we'll now share the events calendar for the month before we wrap up. So we'll have the events calendar for the month, what's coming up, and from ProsperPath.Africa. And we have a lot of financial nuggets for you. So on your screen, there'll be the calendar coming up right now, telling you more about what we have in store for you. So I'll take you through that in the next few minutes. You can also follow the conversation online. Yes, this webinar will be posted on the YouTube channel, ProsperPath.Africa. We'll also show you that screen. So make sure that you engage with us online. We will also be giving away tickets. We are encouraging you to attend these virtual events. We'll be giving you away, we have some lucky winners that we'll be awarding. For this session, we'll be giving away 10 lucky winners, random tickets to people who'll be able to attend our Saturday event. And then for the other events, I'll tell you about it. So on your screens, as you can see, I'd like to guide you on what's coming up. So if you can be able to see on the screen, the first, we have the Money Chats with Experts. These are videos that are available on the YouTube channel, ProsperPath.Africa. Every day, 2 to 3 videos brought to you by experts who have over 100 years of experience doing financial literacy, financial wisdom, just all about finances. So head over to the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe, make sure you click that notification button so that you can be able to be alerted when a new video is uploaded. 2 to 3 videos per day for the next 30 days around money. You don't want to miss that. You know, it's so much value, so much value. The second thing we're having is on Saturday, on this coming Saturday in Nairobi, we are going to be having a physical event. So if you're in Nairobi this Saturday, please come. We know we have a lot of people from outside Kenya. And if you're in Nairobi, please come to Loresho. The details about this event are on the website, ProsperPath.Africa. It is an event about stories about money. Very, very good conversation to be in. The other thing is our weekly sessions, that is Treasure Tuesdays, and this Thrifty Thursdays will go on every week. So tune in. As I said, the people who are tuning in, the guys who are logging in, attending, you might be lucky to win a ticket towards either the 6th, the event coming up on this Saturday, or the event coming up at the end of this month called the Ultimate Summit. So at the end of this month, on the 27th of April, we have a physical event for you. And that physical event is going to be a full day event about money. Still in Nairobi, the details about this event are on the website. So if you forget anything, remember the website has a link to everything. The website has the links to the social media, the YouTube, tickets. You can get to learn a lot about finance. Now, let's show you how the YouTube channel looks like so that you don't go subscribing to the wrong channel. So that's how our YouTube channel looks like. So head over there. We want to see the subscribers, you know, when I see you guys subscribe, click on the notification button, be notified when a new episode is being dropped. 2 to 3 videos a day. We are now at 533 subscribers. Let's get to 1,000 by the end of this week and more. Invite your friends, invite your colleagues, your family members for these free classes. Invite them for the physical class, physical session this Saturday. We want to change and just work with you with you on this journey. Now, we would now like to give you the social media handles, and that is ProsperPath.Africa. You can go and check out on our website and see those details. It's been a pleasure hosting you here. Thank you for being an active audience and participating in the chat section. Thank you for your questions. We appreciate them. We don't take them for granted. We have a lot of participants tuned in, and I would like to call it a wrap. My name is Charles Makio. I have been glad to be your moderator and host. I'll see you next time. On behalf of ProsperPath.Africa, we wish you a happy financial literacy month. Make sure to do your assignment every day, 30 minutes for the next 30 days. Sit by yourself, go through your finances and how to improve your finances. We would like again to appreciate our panelists and our speaker for today, Mr. Chris Otundo, for being here and offering us this experience. Till next time, God bless. Bye-bye.